Hello, everyone. Welcome to Achieving Success with Olivia Akin. I'm your host, Olivia Akin. Each week, we will discuss the roadmap of achieving your personal and professional success. We give you real life stories on growing personally and professionally to achieve your life and career goals with the help of some top notch guests. Today, we are speaking with Dr. Bruce Feldman. Dr. Bruce Feldman, a visionary in the medical field and founder of Feldman. With a background spanning multiple disciplines, Dr. Feldman has dedicated his career to redefining healthcare by combining the best of Western, Eastern, functional, and regenerative medicine. Through his practice, he provides patients with the truly personalized approach to wellness, focusing on prevention, longevity, and whole body health. By integrating cutting-edge medical advancements with time-tested healing traditions, he empowers individuals to take charge of their well-being and achieve optimal vitality. You can find Bruce by going to his website, feldmed.com, or emailing him at drbruce@feldmed.com. Hello, Bruce. It's fantastic having you on the show today.
Thanks for having me. It's my pleasure.
To start off the show, can you tell me what success means and looks like to Dr. Bruce Feldman?
So I measure a lot of my success in other people's success, frankly. I want people to perform better, to live their life to the fullest, to really enjoy feeling good and being alive. And the more people I can stack in that pile, the better I feel. So that's kind of it.
Amazing. Dr. Feldman, you've built FeldMed around the idea of blending the best aspects of multiple medicine disciplines, like I mentioned in your introduction, to create a truly personalized approach to health. What inspired you to develop this unique model, and how does it differ from traditional healthcare systems that most people are familiar with?
So it's a long and tortured path. Uh, I've been doing this 35 years now. FeldMed is my sort of latest iteration. Probably, I don't know, maybe 7 years at FeldMed. Prior to that, maybe 5 years of a business I called My Personal Doc, which was interesting. It was a, personalized concierge kind of practice, but people thought I was Marcus Welby, and what I do is not Marcus Welby, so I'd have to re-explain everything. Now FeldMed at least is, it's my brand of medicine essentially.
Mhm.
So I started way back when doing population management. I was a managed care guy. I ran practices, programs. It was all about getting the most bang for your buck for the most people, right? But that is by its definition looking at the people in the middle, right?
Mhm.
People off on the edges, well, I mean, hope for the best, right? But the goal is to take care of the most number of people. Well, after I did that for 20 years or so, I really I found that I was much more disturbed by the people who don't live in the middle, who are getting screwed by the fact that they're out in the fringes and they're really not having their services addressed, the things that they needed done. And the problem comes in is that everybody, for something, is not in the middle. And if it
Mhm.
turns out that one of those things that you have is not in the middle and it's causing a real problem, you might really be screwed. So that's kind of how I got into what I'm doing.
For you, as you've now gone into, as you said, this iteration of the business and FeldMed, in traditional medicine, a lot of patients often seek care only when symptoms arise, right? And societally, that's where we kind of sit. You wait until those symptoms come. Whereas FeldMed emphasizes the proactive and preventative approach to things within the health space. Can you share a specific success story where integrating multiple disciplines Western, Eastern, and functional medicine made a significant impact on a patient's long-term health and well-being, and that proactive approach.
So, I mean, we've got a whole slew of different kinds of stuff. I mean, you know, the caveat is, do you want to wait for disease to take hold, or are you going to start to recognize that there is a dis-ease that's present and get that before it really gets ugly? Um, Most people, I mean, very, very few people, quite honestly, are fully 100% proactive, right? There are signals, and if you're listening to the signals, they demonstrate that there's an opportunity to be better, right? You're not at your best. Something's not quite right. Those are the people that we really like to focus on, but that's a small percentage. So a lot of people show up with a problem. Um, so we have, I mean, literally everybody who comes in, um, we're integrating across multiple spectra. We have, when there are modalities in the energy medicine space, for example, that a conventional doc would never even look to. I have a handheld, what's called cold laser, right, which is pre-programmed to cut across different symptom complexes, and we can treat. So the most profound example where the laser was effective was a guy who had three implanted electric nerve stimulators that he controlled on his phone because he would have these, I mean, a chronic regional pain syndrome that was not being controlled by anything. And the guy hadn't slept through the night in 2 years, and he had been a marathon runner. Now he walks with a limp, and he's got an arm that looks like he had a stroke, and he's got a movement in his mouth that looks like he's on psych meds. Anyway, make a long story short, I gave him 6 minutes of therapy with the laser, one for chronic pain and the other for nerve stimulation. And this guy couldn't move his arm. He couldn't open his hand. After the 6 minutes, he was able to raise his hand over his head, make a fist, open his hand, wave it around. The pain in his mouth, the thing that was causing his tongue movements, that was gone. His pain in his legs was dramatically improved. That night, he slept through the night. It was the first time he was pain-free in 2 years. And ultimately, we ended up giving him laser treated water that actually kept that treatment sort of going. The whole point of me seeing him was so he could go and get another surgical procedure and not end up back where he had been. And he got that done, and he basically did okay. Now, is he perfect? No, but he is dramatically different from the integration of, regular medicine stuff and all this other combination of things.
And that brings up a good point I want to highlight is sometimes thinking outside the box with approaches to patients who are walking in, as well as understanding technology and how to leverage different, you know, things you have within your realm at the office and what you can provide to patients. For you, how do you figure out which services, or I should say like technology in that realm, to use with like in your office and bring in as a resource?
Yeah, right. Who knows, right? I mean, it's the art and the science of medicine. Um, One of the things I pride myself on is I am not terribly dogmatic. I do not go in with a set, I'm a carpenter, so everything looks like a nail, right? No, we're looking to try to integrate across whatever I can possibly think of, and my brain goes in a lot of different directions. So, you know, I've made it a point over the last 15 years to really explore what the possibilities are. And I may not do some of this stuff, right? I mean, there are plenty of people who do things that I don't do, and I look to find those people if I can to connect my patients with them. I have a person who she calls herself a lifestyle transformation specialist, right? She's a nutritionist, but really an accountability expert, right? I mean, she's holding people accountable for what they want and what they promise or commit to doing, and make sure they do it. And that kind of stuff can be really helpful in terms of moving people forward. I have an energy medicine partner who does, he's not in my practice, but I mean, he's like a brother. He basically does all kinds of stuff that is, frankly, so far out there that most people think, that's where the witchcraft comes in, right? What is this woo-woo stuff? Well, you know what? It may be woo-woo, but it works. And I go back to a quote from NASA. So, of what we know to exist in the universe, we can only measure and describe accurately 5% of that, right? 27% is dark matter, because we know it's matter, but we can't describe anything beyond that. And 68% is dark energy, because we know it's there, it's energetic, but that's all we know. Well, that means 95% of the universe is still a mystery to us. So there are things that work which we can't fully explain. And I give the example. What's the difference? And this may sound crass, but what's the difference between a dead body and a live body? It's a life force, right? The biochemistry just stopped. Why did it stop? Well, nobody actually knows the answer to that question. But, it's like pornography. You know when you see it, right? You can tell when somebody's alive. It's not that difficult. But there's something there that we can't put our finger on, right?
And one thing you brought up too is working with different individuals. You really work in a team to solve patients' issues and be proactive on things and what they really need, whether it's accountability or different types of medicine and approaches. For you, how do you kind of look at people you want to collaborate with and also know when to call upon them and really have that team show up in a way?
Well, it's they call it a practice because you're always trying to figure it out, right? I mean, it varies quite a bit. A lot of it is, again, what can't you measure? I mean, it's a gut feeling, right? I mean, there's an art to this. Um, the energy medicine guy, he's what's called a medical intuitive. So he actually like feels what's going on with people. I can describe somebody and he already knows that person. You know what I mean? Through our energetic connections. I mean, you talk about physics and you talk about electron entanglements and stuff. We're all connected, you know? So feeling that kind of thing, paying attention to those nuances of, I think this might actually work, and then actually sort of justifying it to myself through some biophysiologic mechanism. If I can find the justification. One of the things that I've discovered recently, well, maybe not that recently, but over the last several years, is that I'm tying together a series of data elements that are relatively unique. Very few people do. Well, nobody does exactly what I do, but there are people who put some of this stuff together. But when I put it together, I'll have the person in front of me and I'll think one thing, right? And then as we get into it, I start to mold that picture more and more. Then you add data on top of it and you get confirmation of these things. And then by the time you're done with a couple of visits and the full totality of the initial data, you have a very clear picture of people and it all ties together. and you kind of know where somebody will be headed if they stay on this path or they go on that path. You can get a clearer picture, and then you can start to direct folks accordingly. It's really, I mean, it's really pretty cool, I got to tell you. It's certainly
What?
fun for me anyway.
Yeah, I was gonna say it sounds like it could be fun and an interesting challenge and way of problem solving for you. What is your favorite part of it?
So, it's interesting. I did a program some years back, and that we defined core values, right? And the core values, um, really, a couple of them, fun is one of mine. And but another one of mine is what's called I call elegant solutions, which sort of comes from my chemistry training background. And it's really, how do you get from point A to point B in the most efficient, efficacious manner, right? The least number of steps, the biggest yield, something that just is elegant. I mean, you don't need 20 steps. If you can find the one keystone, that's the thing to do. So that floats my boat, quite honestly. And then I get excited about that stuff when I can find that thing that really changes the picture. And, you get lucky once in a while.
And that being said, in changing the picture, there's a level that of trust and vulnerability and transparency that comes from both end parties in that point, the patient and the doctor. How do you go about building trust and guiding patients, especially when they might have not had the best history with other doctors, might be skeptical towards embracing the more innovative and overarching approach to their health?
Well, sometimes it's tricky, right? Some people are not very trusting. And people are heavily invested. Some people are heavily invested in their illness, right?
Mhm.
Those are not people I can work with. The people have to be open. And we don't ask anyone to believe. We ask people to suspend disbelief. Give it a chance, right? We have a series of different things that just seem completely crazy, right? Um, but you know what? All of a sudden you realize, God, that stuff works, you know? And I don't need a double-blinded prospective randomized trial if I've seen effectiveness in a number of people and this is key. What's the downside risk? What's the worst thing that could happen? Most of the stuff that we're talking about has very little downside risk, right? If you do it within, certain parameters. If you're just willy-nilly and cowboy, as they say in my business, if you're just a crazy cowboy, then yeah, you can really hurt people. Um, but if you're aware of that downside risk and you take that into account, then the chances are that not a whole lot of bad things are going to happen. The upside is enormous. So I couch a lot of that. I tell people that very specifically. Sometimes you're going to have to get a little worse before you get better, but we can't get you a whole lot worse because then we're not doing it properly, right? And a classic, I mean, one of the things that people talk about in the functional medicine space or whatever is detox, right? Well, most detoxes really are garbage because all they're doing is stirring up all the stuff that's in there and they don't adequately allow you to get rid of it. So you just make a big mess, you feel like crap, and then it calms down and you feel so much better than you did when you felt like crap. But that doesn't mean you're better. So you have to know how to manage these processes, right? And if you do, people will be better and they'll see the difference and stuff will start to work better. Now, one of the challenges is getting people, once you've quote unquote solved their problem, to getting them to commit to a longer term, as you say, more proactive stance. They go back to taking care of yourself can be hard work, right? People are not used to that work because our culture is about waving the magic wand.
Hmm.
And that's not how it works, right? Your body is, as they say, your body is a temple. Well, you know what? Your body is genius. It is genius. But your body lives in this world, and your world is working very hard, some people more than others, to mess up that genius. And my job, very simply, is to figure out where your world is messing up your genius and get that stuff out of the way. Because your body will work itself out if given the opportunity. So that's really at a real important sort of primary thing. Just get out of the way.
Hmm. It's also, from what you were saying there too, a mindset shift in a
100%.
way, an approach way of, okay, you have to shift the way you're looking at the situation, how you're looking at getting better, how you're looking at your health in general, how you're looking at your body.
I'll give you a basic scenario, right? So in conventional medicine, you have asthma, okay? And what are we going to do? We're going to give you a corticosteroid inhaler to suppress the immunologic reaction to whatever's going on as this reversible trigger occurs in your pulmonary system. What if your body is actually trying to get rid of something through your lungs? Well, why do I say that? There are four different ways that you can excrete or get rid of garbage from your body, right? You can breathe, you can sweat, you can pee, and you can poop. That's it. It's the only ways you can get rid of stuff. If you bring stuff into your system, it gets processed, and then there's garbage at the end. It needs to leave your body. Well, if you have let's say, a gallbladder problem or a gut problem, your colon doesn't work effectively. So, for example, you live a restricted life, right? Everything is all tied up. You can't release stuff, right? And these are all, conversations, and in Chinese medicine and Eastern medicine, they talk a lot about this kind of thing. You're stuck. Well, then things won't flow out your colon and things back up, and they have to find an exit point. Well, now it turns out that your lungs are actually not the weakest part of your body, but the next strongest part. So now your bodies decide, well, let me try to get rid of this stuff through the lungs. But your lungs aren't designed to do that. So now you get an inflammatory problem. So what if un we could release the gastrointestinal tract so that we could drain through the colon? Suddenly your lungs get better. And you don't need that steroid, which is really just tamping down the natural body's response. So I have all kinds of examples of this, which is completely, quote unquote, non-traditional. But frankly, if you go to Eastern medicine, Chinese medicine, you'll see a lot of that kind of stuff. And by the
And
way, that tradition's only like 10,000 years old, so what do they know?
well, and that's what I was going to follow up with is, how have you dedicated time not only to seeing patients and like working on their care and staying proactive on your own care, but also doing research on, the different aspects, whether it's Western, Eastern, functional, whatever types of medicine, and having that understanding for yourself, not only so you have the understanding, but then you can say it correctly to the patients in a way where they will perceive it.
So there's a lot of things that you just said that I could unpack. One of the things I'm happy to report is I had to get new life insurance, and they actually put me at the highest, the best level, super premium, whatever it is. So that was nice to see that. We're working out okay. Um, the um, the interesting thing is, I spend a lot of time reading, obviously, when I'm not quote unquote working. I feel like I'm working all the time because I'm reading all the time. But um, I have colleagues who know stuff that I don't know, so I'm talking to them all the time. Um, it's an ongoing process. Um, I think that the conventional practice model is really it's kind of flawed. I mean, it's designed not, there's no time, first of all. So there was a statistic that showed that the average primary care guy comes in with 5.7 complaints, that the face-to-face, this is years ago now, the face-to-face time with the practitioner was 12 minutes. And to the practitioner's credit, the majority of that time was spent talking about the primary complaint. But if you're talking about the primary complaint, right? So that means you have 4.7 complaints that have to be handled in under 6 minutes. It just doesn't sound like you're going to be doing all that much good for that individual, right? I don't know. It's a sad state of affairs, really. It really
Mhm.
is. I didn't answer part of that question, I think.
No, you're fine. You're fine. So, Bruce, how can people get in touch with you if they want to connect with you?
Well, so probably the easiest way, because then it's convenient for you and me, is go to Dr. Bruce at feldmed.com. It's right there on the screen under my name. Well, maybe it won't show up, but it's on my Zoom anyway. DRBRUCE at feldmed.com. And or you can go to the website feldmed.com, and there's a link to contact us that way. Um, you know, I my practice is set up so that if you leave a message, either email or otherwise, you're going to end up talking to me. Um, you know, because my practice is an either out of network or simply, direct pay practice in a concierge style. Um, it's important for me to have you understand what we're talking about, how we're doing things, what it's going to cost, all of that stuff. So we try to be pretty transparent about all of that stuff. Um, you know, I know I deliver value, but sometimes it's not in your budget. If it's not in your budget, I can try to work with you, but it's not free. We spend a lot of time. The the outcomes are important. And if you're not invested emotionally, financially, energetically, then it's not going to work. So it's not worth our time.
Well, thank you, Bruce, for all of your insight today.
Thanks for having me. It was fun.
And a few of those key takeaways from today's conversation include: do you want to wait for the disease, or when you start to feel dis-ease, go and get that looked at and start being proactive? Like Dr. Feldman said, it's really important to have that mind shift and start looking at your health and your body in a different way and be more proactive about not just how you take care of yourself, but when you start to feel that dis-ease, start talking about it and start solving that problem, as well as explore the possibilities, whether it's in medicine, your day-to-day work life, family life, exploring all the different possibilities. And then, as Dr. Feldman brought up, figuring out what is the best way and best and fastest way to get from point A to point B, but really understanding all those different possibilities. In health and what he does, it might be collaborating with different people on his team. It might be doing different preventative situations, as well as what is the downside to the risk you're taking. As Dr. Feldman brought up with his care, he really makes it known, like, what is that downside? You are where you are now. And if, unless ultimately things do not work out, you can only go up from there. So why not give it a try? Why not be open-minded? Why not listen and try the things that can make you better? This was a great episode with our top-notch guest, Dr. Bruce Feldman. Thank you for listening and have a successful day.